Welcome back, guys. Thank you for coming back to the highlighting guide for the Florida Contractors Manual 2021 edition. And today we will be going over Chapter 6, which is the workers' compensation. On the next page, you have the table of contents. You don't have nothing highlighted there, but you should go over all of this. And page 6.5, we have workers' comp. When is workers' compensation coverage needed? The Florida Workers' Compensation Act is applicable to an employer in the construction industry who employs one or more full or part-time employees. Sole proprietors, partners, and corporate officers are considered employees. If a contractor is liable to an employee of a subcontractor who has elected exemption from Chapter 440, but whose election is invalid, the contractor may recover from the subcontractor benefits paid and interest due unless they have agreed in writing that the contractor will provide coverage. Construction industry. Construction industry means for-profit activities involving any building clearing, filling, excavation, or substantial improvement in the size or use of any structure or the appearance of any land. All right. And we'll go on to page 6.6. We have exempt classifications. You will get a lot of questions from this page, guys, asking you about the exempt workers' comp or jobs, not construction jobs. The following activities are not construction jobs as that term is used in the workers' compensation statute. And you want to go over these. The most common ones I've seen in the exams are carpet laying in existing buildings, well drilling on land containing existing buildings. Down below we have the employees of subcontractors are considered the statutory employees of the general contractor, and as such the general contractor must purchase workers' compensation for the employees of the subcontractor. It does not make any difference that the subcontractor is an independent contractor. If there is a contractor-subcontractor relationship, the general contractor still purchases workers' comp coverage for the employees of this subcontractor. The only exception to this obligation to purchase coverage for employees of subcontractors is if the subcontractor purchases workers' comp coverage. So that's the only exception, that the general contractor does not need to get coverage for the subcontractor, is if the subcontractor has his own coverage already. Down below we have, if a contractor becomes liable to pay workers' compensation benefits for the employees of the subcontractor, the contractor is entitled to recover from the subcontractor all benefits the contractor is required to pay plus interest unless the contractor by written contract has agreed to purchase coverage. A subcontractor who knowingly presents false information as to the existence of coverage when in fact there is none commits a third-degree felony. So you probably get a question about that too. What is it? It's a third-degree felony. Page 6.7. A sole proprietor or partner in the construction industry, regardless of whether he is an independent contractor, is considered to be an employee. Selecting workers' compensation coverage. It should be reimbursed. It should be remembered that the employee cannot be required to pay part of the workers' compensation premium. Likewise, the employee cannot be required to sign a statement that he will not seek to obtain workers' compensation benefits if injured on your job. So it is mandatory. Page 6.8, we have nothing. Page 6.9, we have miscellaneous coverage plans down below. And we want to highlight, if you have an approved safety program or established a drug-free workplace program, which will be described later in the book, special discounts are available. Page 610, failure to obtain workers' compensation coverage. What happens if an employer fails to obtain required coverage and an accident occurs? In such instance, the injured employee can require you to pay workers' compensation benefits individually or can sue you in civil court. Second paragraph. It also is a misdemeanor or a second degree not to have required coverage. As mentioned previously, if you are a contractor, you can lose your license for not having the required coverage. Employer responsibilities. Knowledge of your employee's prior medical problems can be gained through the use of pre-employment physical or medical screening. Page 611. Under the Workers' Compensation Act, the employer has the choice of physician for the injured worker. Supervisors should be told that if an accident occurs, only particular physicians should be used on the initial referral. The employer should be aware of the fact that an injured worker is not required to pay anything towards his medical bills. Basically, the injured worker is entitled to 2/3 of his average weekly wage, up to a maximum for the healing period that is needed to recover from the compensable accident. The first 7 days of disability are not paid unless the injured worker is off work for more than 21 days. Down below, should death occur, the employee beneficiaries are entitled up to $150,000 in death benefits and $7,500 in funeral costs. So they will ask you a question about that as well. Make sure you remember that it's under workers' compensation. Death benefits. Responsibilities after the accident. The employee should also be advised of the employer's expected safety rules and regulations, since if there is a knowing refusal to follow safety rules and regulations, there can possibly be a 25% reduction in the employee's workers' compensation benefits if an accident does in fact occur. The injured worker has 30 days in which to advise the employer of the fact that an accident occurred. This is another popular exam question, so make sure you guys highlight the numbers and try to go over this at least 3 times as well. Page 612. Following the accident, within 7 days of knowledge of an accident, the employer must report to the carrier notice of injury or a specific form provided by the Division of Workers' Compensation. Failure to report this injury to the carrier may involve up to $2,000 fine per occurrence. First aid cases. Requiring treatment on the site that do not require medical treatment for which charges will be incurred and do not disable the employee for more than 7 days do not need to be reported. The Florida Workers' Compensation Law also requires the reporting of an on-the-job injury accident resulting in the death of an employee within 24 hours to the Division of Workers' Compensation, Bureau of Industrial Safety and Health in Tallahassee. Next paragraph. Employers must retain copy of all information contained in the first report of accident, including the actual forms, for not less than 2 years and 6 months. Any violation of the rule for reporting accidents can subject the employer to a penalty of up to $500. Down below, guys, ordinarily it is irrelevant how the accident occurred on the job. Next paragraph. Basically, therefore, workers' compensation is a no-fault system. Realizing the no-fault characteristics of workers' compensation, it is generally not important how the accident occurred. Page 613. Return to work process. The process begins when the physician releases the employee to return to work. An employee is not required to return to work until so advised. Many times, the physician advises the insurance provider or even the employer of the return to work date, but not the employee. Therefore, written verification to the employee of return to work must be made. Next page, 614. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fifth paragraph. With an unemployed disabled employee comes the added expense of rehabilitation, either in returning the employee to lighter types of work or work search assistance. Training and education are mandatory under the workers' compensation law. Page 615. This is financial impact of workers' compensation on the contractor. Employers are classified by types of jobs their employees perform and are manually rated per $100 hour payroll. And then 2 paragraphs after, we have your comparison to other employers with your industry is known as the experience modification factor, experience mod. Page 616, we have using the example of the roofing employer as above noted with the 1.5 experience mod, that employer would pay $27,900, for example, 18.60 classification amount times 1,000, number of 100 units of payroll times 1.5 experience mod. Page 617, eligibility information, corporation. The applicant must attest to a minimum 10% ownership of the corporation. No more than 3 officers of a corporation or any group affiliated. Corporations, including LLCs, may elect to be exempt. A $50 application fee is required. And then we have a pretty good skip. We have workers' comp frequently asked questions. One is, who needs workers' compensation coverage? That you can find here on page 623. And we have page 626. We have injuries. Who do I get a supply of injury report forms that I can that I am required to complete when one of my employees is injured? And we also have what injuries are not covered. On page 627, we have compensation will not be paid in several other instances. Next page 628, we have drug-free workplace. Will becoming a drug-free workplace save me money on my insurance premiums? You want to go over that? Go to page 632. We have how much will I be paid? And on page 633, when will I get my first check? If I'm only temporarily disabled, how long can I get these checks? On page 634, we have what is the time limit for filing a petition for benefits? We have another pretty good skip here, and let's see where the next one is. Okay, so page 659. This is enforcement. When an employer is operating without the required coverage, civil enforcement action is taken. This most often results in the issuance of stop work order, requiring that the business cease all operations until it complies with the law and pays a penalty. The penalty is equal to 2 times the amount the employer would have paid in manual premiums within the preceding 2-year period. We have page 660, fatality reporting. Employers are required to notify the division within 24 hours of any injury resulting in death. This is in workers' comp, guys. They will ask you a question about this also under safety, and that might be different, but in the workers' comp, it's within 24 hours. Make sure you guys underline or circle that. And then we have another skip here, and it leads us to chapter 440, which is also workers' comp. This is a book within a book, and we have page 440.107. Department powers to enforce employer Compliance with coverage requirements. We have 440.15, compensation for disability. 440.185, notice of injury or death reports, penalties for violations. 440.381, application for coverage, reporting payroll audit procedures, penalties. 440.40, compensation notice. And 440.54, violation of child labor law. So we will be able to find those in the book. We have page 675 under coverage, under 440.09. Number 5, if injury is caused by the knowing refusal of an employee to use safety appliance, observe a safety rule required by statute of lawfully adopted by the department and brought prior to the accident to the employee's knowledge, or if any injury is caused by knowing refusal of the employee to use safety appliance provided by the employer, the compensation as provided is in this chapter shall be reduced to 25%. We have a skip. Page 678, liability for compensation. Letter F, if an employer fails to secure compensation as required by the chapter, the department shall assess against the employer a penalty not to exceed $5,000 or each employee of the employer who is classified by the employer as an independent contractor, but who is found by the department to not meet the criteria for an independent contractor that are set forth in statute 440.02. Page 681, we have letter B, an employer not having a drug testing program shall ensure that at least 60 days elapse between a general one-time notice to all employees that a drug-free testing program is being implemented and the beginning of actual drug testing. So make sure you guys highlight these numbers and circle them. We have a pretty good skip here. Going to page 689. This is under civil remedies, administrative penalty. 440.107, department powers to enforce employer compliance with coverage requirements. Letter C, the department shall assess a penalty of $1,000 per day against the employer for each day that the employer conducts business operations that are in violation of stop work order. And then on the right hand side, letter F, in addition to any other penalties provided for this chapter, the department may assess against the employer a penalty of $5,000 for each employee of that employer who is the employer represents to the department of carrier as an independent contractor, but who is determined by the department not to be an independent contractor as defined in statute 440.02. We have another skip. Let's see. Page 6105, compensation for disability. Permanent total disability. In case of total disability adjudged, I don't know how to pronounce that, adjudged to be permanent, 66 2/3 or 66.67% of the average weekly wages shall be paid to the employee during the continuance of such total disability. No compensation shall be payable under this section if the employee is engaged in or physically capable of engaging in at least sedentary employment. Page 6108, letter C. When an employee returned to work with the restriction resulting from the accident and is earning wages less than 80% of the pre-injury average weekly wage, the first installment of temporary partial disability benefits is 7 days after the last day of the post-injury employer's first biweekly work week. Page 6111, compensation for death. Actual funeral expenses not to exceed $7,500. Shall not exceed $150,000. So when it's asking you guys a question about compensation for death, this is one section you guys can look at. Page 6112. Notice of injury or death report penalties for violations. Number 2. Within 7 days after actual knowledge of injury or death, the employer shall report such injury or death to the carrier. The name, address, business of the employer. B. The name, social security number, street, mailing address, telephone number, and occupation of the employee. C. The cause and nature of injury or death. D. The year, month, day, and hour when the particular locality where the injury or death occurred, and E. Such other information as the department may require. Page 6113. Number 8. An employer or carrier who fails or refuses to timely send any form, report, or notice required by this section shall be subject to an administrative fine by the department not to exceed $500 for each such failure or refusal. So all this is under notice of injury or death report penalties for violations. You guys will get a lot of questions about this. We have a skip here. Let's see. Page 6129. We have application for coverage, reporting payroll audit procedures. Number 2. Submission of application that contains false, misleading, or incomplete information provided with the purpose of avoiding or reducing the amount of premiums for workers' compensation coverage is a felony of the 3rd degree, punishable as provided in statute 775.082. See, we have another one. Page 6139. 440.40 compensation notice. Every employer who has secured compensation under the provisions of this chapter shall keep posted in conspicuous place. Conspicuous. Yep, I think that's how you say it. Number 2, a notice stating anti-fraud reward program rewards up to $25 may be paid to persons providing information to the Department of Financial Services leading to the arrest and conviction of persons committing insurance fraud. Let's see what other page you guys can highlight. Page 6151. You guys have 440.54 violation of child labor law. The total compensation so payable shall not exceed double the amount otherwise payable under this chapter. And that's it for workers' compensation, guys. We have the book within the book, which is chapter 440, and the regular chapter 6, workers' compensation. Make sure you guys go over this at least 3 times, I would say, and go over some practice questions. I don't have any practice questions yet, but maybe in the future I will. But I recommend you guys go through a school. This is just a highlighting guide that I'm doing now for you guys that I'm sure will help you. It'll help you get familiar with the book and what they ask you questions about a lot in the exams. So the next chapter I will go over is chapter 7. And please like, comment, share, subscribe if you guys think this is helpful. And if you guys want me to show the other highlighted books as well, please let me know in the comments. Thank you.